Hey, everybody. Welcome to Badass Banter, the hybrid group discussion and podcast interviews. I'm Carol Fillion, your host. And this week it is a podcast interview. And I can't wait for you to meet this amazing, amazing woman that I had the privilege of. I started working with her actually January 1st. She was working on New Year's Day. So she just absolutely she blows my mind. She rocks my world. She is absolutely phenomenal. So before I get to the introduction, let me get through a little bit of housekeeping with you. Okay. As I mentioned, this is a hybrid discussion podcast interview. So the fact that it is a podcast interview, we do want to have a discussion portion to it. So we are going to be streaming in the Mindset Mavericks group on Facebook. I will also be streaming on my LinkedIn page. I am also streaming this in the YouTube channel, the Badass Banter YouTube channel. So that way you can drop your questions in there and we will absolutely get to them. And this is pre-recorded, by the way, so that way it is just going to be streaming, so there won't be any interruptions. But like I said, we will get to the questions absolutely. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Carol Fillion. I am a mindset coach and mentor. And what I do is I help mature women release their inner badass so that they can finally give themselves permission to tap in the knowledge, the decades of knowledge, wisdom, power, and just step into their greatness with all of this juicy goodness that they bring to the table so that they can waltz into their third act with joy and intention. That's my mission. So when, and it's a big part of my job actually to be on social media as a coach. And it had actually became very apparent very quickly that I could not do this alone. And so, well, because hey, what does one wear for a cavity search, which is really what getting on social felt like for me. So I decided to get some help. And the person I'm interviewing today is my social media bestie, as she very aptly describes herself. And today, my guest is the amazing Kara Ray. So, Kara specializes in social media marketing and management. She is your social growth bestie, as she describes herself, helping you reach your next level of success personally and professionally. And she's also my social media manager, as if you haven't guessed that already. And the fact that she constantly helps me overcome my introverted, self-imposed hurdles, I felt she was the perfect guest for this week's Badass Banter, introversion and social media. So please help me welcome to the virtual stage, the amazing, the wonderful Kara Ray. I'm just going to let her in right now. Here we go. Hey, Kara.
Hello.
I know you were backstage and you didn't hear all the wonderful things I said about you, but
That's
I
okay.
am so, so stoked to be having this conversation with you because you've seen me go through, I mean, it's only been what, 3 months? We're in our
Yeah.
fourth month working together, and
Yeah.
you've seen just about every shade of neuroses around social media that this little
Yes.
introvert has gone through. And I felt, you know what, this is a topic, and it's a hot topic because I just announced it a couple of days ago, and already there have been people that are, oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
totally want to hear this. And they're probably going to tune into the replay. I know a bunch of people will, and there will probably be a bunch of questions. So I'm going to try and cover as much as I possibly can in the
Yeah.
time that we have. So let's start by talking about you first of all, okay? So we know where we're what we're dealing with here when it comes to
Yes.
social media. So why did you choose the path of entrepreneurship first off?
So I chose the path of entrepreneurship because I became a mom. So when I became pregnant with my daughter, I didn't really know how that was going to change my life in the way that it did, and in the best ways that it has. And at the time, prior to choosing entrepreneurship, I actually worked as a paramedic. And I realized then that it was wonderful as a career being somebody who was single, being able to do whatever you wanted to do, work the crazy hours. I was young, I was able to do it. And then I have always wanted to be a mom, and I have always prided myself on wanting to be a present mom. And I
Mm.
knew that if I was going to be a paramedic or work those night shifts or crazy hours, that would take away from the time that I felt was so valuable with my kids. So that was the biggest thing. I also grew up with a mom who is spectacular and has also been an entrepreneur basically my entire life.
Right.
So I got to see her be able to show up and do things for me when I needed her in that moment versus having to wait till she was off work versus having to ask permission. And if there's one thing about me is I don't want to have to ask permission to go show up for my kids. I don't want to ask people, hey, do you mind if I take some time to go spend time with my family? No, that's not it. So those were probably the biggest reasons why I became an entrepreneur, and love it.
Such a wise decision, because I was one of those moms that
Mhm.
unfortunately had to ask for permission to be
Yeah.
present in my kids' lives. So,
And you know what? And
yeah,
some moms do, and some moms enjoy it.
yeah,
I want to take that away from any of the moms who love going to their careers and love doing that. I just knew for me personally that that wasn't for me,
yeah,
and that I wanted to be able to just do everything I possibly could with them. I don't roll with the 9 to 5.
yeah.
I don't.
Well, I think even just having a job as a paramedic was not a 9 to 5 thing,
No,
obviously. Yeah,
no, gosh,
right?
no.
I mean, your time really is not your own. You're
No.
on call, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So then how do you balance having a business, a thriving business, I might add, and a happy home life? How do you draw that balance?
So I would say it takes grace and it takes a lot of patience and it takes being really clear on what you're doing each day.
Mm,
So if I don't have a schedule with my clients or tasks that are coming down the pipeline, then it's just kind of working all hours, which that works for some people. But because my main goal was time freedom, I wanted to be able to schedule those clients in, get those tasks done efficiently, and also have the freedom to spend time with them when they got home from school. And granted, it hasn't always been that way. Okay. Like last night, I worked at night.
mhm.
I was out, we did things. And then that meant that at nighttime, when my husband was home, he took the lead. So I think it comes down to communicating when you need that extra time. And I'm lucky that I have a partner. I'm also lucky that I have very involved parents, like grandparents with the kids, so that I'm able to be really flexible with that schedule. So, and it's taken me a while. Like I am not perfect. My balance has been like an ebb and flow. Some days it's wonderful, other days it's like, wow, we jumped on the hot mess express and we gotta figure this out. So it's a work in progress all the time. I don't strive for perfection, and I try to be as scheduled, I guess, that I possibly can for my business. And that's what helps create, I guess, the balance between business and family life.
Oh, absolutely. I totally get you, because I'm the same way. I mean, sure, calendar is queen, but the queen needs a nap every once in a while. So,
Yes.
you
And
know,
sometimes the schedule just doesn't work that way. Like life happens. You can have a schedule, but just know that sometimes it's not going to work that way. Your
well,
kids will be sick. Like that's
yeah.
even what we've been dealing with. My son had the flu for 7 days.
Yeah.
So that meant he was home. That meant that things needed to shift. And that meant that I was working with him literally right beside me. But
Mhm.
that's really beautiful to be able to still do the work that I love to do, take care of my kids. And so there was like a lovely little duality there.
Oh, for sure. It's Ross in
Yeah.
the stairwell with the couch, right? Pivot, right?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I gotta say about that. So,
Yeah.
all right, so now let's talk about the business itself. What
Mhm.
you've decided, okay, paramedic and
Yeah.
now social media.
Yep.
How do you make that shift? What made you decide on social media?
So I didn't start with social media actually. I
Okay.
actually started with coaching. So I started as a mindset coach and
Oh,
I started with mindset and lifestyle. So I wanted to be able to, and I still do in a lovely different way. I feel like my business is kind of a mix of coaching and also social media. But It started with coaching, and it started with me supporting moms. It started with me being able to hold space for them, for their growth, for them to create a happy home life. And then, if I'm going to be really honest here, our family during COVID and after, we went through a lot of family transitions. You know, I'm a mom, I'm a stepmom, so we have a lot of co-parenting dynamics and things, and it was really heavy. So for a while, I almost felt like an imposter because I didn't know how to move myself through the situation. So how was I supposed to help other moms?
Mm.
So in that discovery, which I feel like was also a little self-sabotage, I also discovered that I was already helping moms with their social media. I was already helping them create a business. I was already helping them with all of these things that I love to do behind the scenes. And I was still able to help with the coaching aspect of things, or move through some of those limiting beliefs that came up for them. And I realized that that was my jam, and that I was still able to do the work that I love to do, but it just shifted in a space where I didn't feel not myself, in a space where I felt like I could still show up as a business owner and not feel like an imposter, or not feel like I couldn't give myself the grace to go through the season I was going through and still support. So I've always believed that everything happens for a reason. And I do feel like, even as heavy as the situation is that we went through, it developed my business into what it is now. And I've created some really beautiful connections. I still get to, it's kind of funny how things will come back full circle when you give it the space, and everything has. So that's really kind of the evolution of that.
Which absolutely makes so much sense to me now, and that's why I'm so glad you brought that up, because
Yes.
this fits so beautifully in our relationship.
Yeah,
Because for myself,
absolutely.
as a mindset coach, I'm also a tech geek. So
Yes,
a
you
lot
are.
you I know, more than enough to be dangerous.
Yes. Yes, she
But
does, people.
but at the same time, right? It's like physician heal thyself, right? You
Yeah.
can't you look at this stuff, I know all of it, and yet it came time to do it. It was like,
Yeah. We're human though. We're human.
jam. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
there was this so anytime I've gone through my own limiting
Yeah.
beliefs and blocks around social media, this is where it was such a blessing for me to have you on Team
Yeah.
Carol, because it was, you've got but you've got that.
Yeah.
You understand my jam. So
Yeah.
you're going, "Okay, hang on a second," and you
Yeah.
understand social media, and when you're the third party, right, it's so much, you can look at it not with a dispassionate eye, that's not what I mean, but it's easier to look at it from the outside,
Yeah.
and
Well, the way that I see it is that your business is yours, right? So I'm able to have a difference of opinion
right,
for you, or able to see things a little bit differently than somebody, like even myself in my business. I will look at things and I will overcomplicate it. And then I'll
don't we
have,
all?
let's say a friend of mine, or even another business partner that I have, and they're like, this is beautiful. This is
Mm,
wonderful. Why are you overcomplicating this? I literally did it yesterday, where I
mm,
had sent a post to like my mom, who's also a best friend of mine and a business person, and I was like, "Could you look over this post? I don't think it's right." And she was like, "It's perfect." So we do, like, so it's easy for me to be like, "Hey, Carol,
oh my
this is what I'm seeing. These are the things that are coming up." But it's
yeah.
a little bit, sometimes a little harder to do that to ourselves, I think.
Absolutely, and I
Yeah,
love that you've been so, candid and authentic, and even just, "Okay, you know what? We don't have to do anything this week. Take a break, move away,
yeah,
walk away from
yeah,
it." And it's like,
yeah.
"Okay, thank you."
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
what's the point of forcing a square peg in a round hole?
Nope.
You're
There
just
isn't. There
it's no
isn't.
fun. And there's a
Nope.
lot of splinters and slivers involved.
And business is supposed to feel good. Like, yeah,
Yes.
there's going to be some moments where, you're trudging through the mud. That's a term that me and you've used a few times.
Oh yeah.
And you're moving through some of the thick things, some of the new systems, some of the new things, and it feels they're growing pains. So
Yeah.
those things are normal. But if you come up to moments where you're like, no,
Yeah.
no, then
Yeah.
you got to trust that. And you got to take a step back and figure out why.
Hmm.
So I've always, since the moment I started my business, that if I was not feeling well, that if I was not feeling this and that it felt wrong, that it was okay to give myself the space to figure it out.
Mm.
Because if I just kept pushing through and doing things that I did not like, that's the only energy I was going to put out. And that's not
Mm.
what I wanted to do.
Absolutely. I think it
Yeah.
was just this morning, actually, I saw a clip of Steven Spielberg talking about, one of the things that we ignore the most is our own intuition. And intuition
Yep.
never yells, it whispers.
It
So you
does.
have to turn down the volume to really be able to hear it.
Yep.
So by
It's
trying to
there.
muscle our way through,
Yeah.
then we're ramping up the noise,
Absolutely.
right?
We wrap up the noise with all the could do, should do, would do's. And
Yeah.
a lot of them are not even things we necessarily want to do. It's things that we've like brought in and made that maybe we should do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So let's talk about some of these things then and how you help clients overcome those mental blocks like those
yeah.
I get every week around Thursday that have actually magnified and gone full bore neurotic by Sunday night when you're sending me the gentle nudge and go, "Hey, how are we looking for content?" So I got nothing.
Yes.
I got
Yes. Yeah.
nothing. So what do you feel is the biggest obstacle your clients face?
Hmm. I think I wouldn't even say the term self sabotage, but I find that they get so in their own way.
Mm,
So it's almost like they look at their content, and at first, when they create it, they're like, this is magic. This is beautiful. And then they start absorbing other content or other people, or they start to look at other people's business models
yeah.
and think, well, that's crap. Well, now that doesn't work. And
Mhm.
they talk themselves out of it based off of other people's businesses. And so I think it's that fear of like, what if this will work too? Is I think another one is that fear of success. Cause I think a lot of people actually struggle with this idea of can I hold it?
Mhm.
Can I be there? Can I be that person to do it? And every single one of us is capable of holding it.
Mm.
It's just getting over all these other people's opinions. And I
Mm.
think that's the biggest one. And that's one of the biggest ones that held me back was other people's opinions. And the only opinion that should matter is at the end of the day is yours. If you feel like you are creating a business that follows your values, that follows your belief systems, and you know in your heart that it's right, then it's right. And it doesn't matter what your parents say, what your friends say, because this is my new thing. They are not paying my bills. They are
Ha!
not the people who are investing in my business. They are not my ideal client. And so I have to stop worrying about, well, is my family going to like this? Is my family going to think I'm annoying? Is somebody going to think, no, because my ideal client is not going to think that. If anything, they're going to need it. They're going to want it. They're going to say, wow, I feel so seen. So I think the biggest barrier is other people's opinions and
Yeah.
making those your own.
Absolutely, and I'm just writing something down here that I'm gonna
Yeah.
bring up in a second, but I love that you brought up others' opinions because very often it's others' perceived opinions. We already decide what other people are
Yes.
going to think of negatively
Yep.
from our posts, of
Yeah.
our and then we hold ourselves back on something that might not necessarily be real.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
Right? I mean,
Yep.
yeah, okay, haters gonna hate, 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 but
Yep.
but the what about the ones in our minds, right?
Well,
Those are the
yeah.
monkeys that need to toss them a banana and get them out of the way. Jeez.
Yeah. And I think another thing that's actually really big that's coming up for me is comparison. Is that
Yes.
people compare themselves. Let's say you just start a business and you see someone. Now, I'm not saying your growth can't be exponential, it can be. But I do feel like there's still systems and things that need to be in place in order to see those things happen.
Right.
And people get, especially let's say when you have like a business like ourselves, we have ideal clients. Therefore, we do actually need to do some work in understanding who they are, what their pain points are, what we can help them move through. And that takes effort. That takes actually putting your pen to paper and figuring those things out. It takes also having a system and moving people from here to here, like, and understanding your business model. And I feel like people will compare themselves to other people's business models and they'll get lost because they'll think, well, I want to have it all now. But what they haven't seen is that business owner started here. They started here and then they went here and then they went here. But they bought the system. Like, right? They had a system. They did, like, I believe in foundations. I'm a foundations gal. Like, let's start with one thing, let's compound. And let's compound so that you know what you're doing. And then so you're not, it's not a sprint.
Yeah.
It's like it's a nice pace. You're just going at a nice pace at your pace. And yeah, comparison is, people say this, it's a thief of joy. And
Oh,
it's,
absolutely. And a
yeah,
sprint, I mean, a sprint is only so long, right?
exactly. That's why it's
So
a
you
nice,
go beyond
nice
that, you're
pace.
gonna burn out,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It's a
So
marathon. It's a
yeah,
marathon. Have the odd sprint throughout, and there are actual
absolutely.
business meetings that are called that. They're sprints. It's like, okay,
Yeah,
what do we need to do right now? And that's
yeah,
fine. I get that. But
yeah.
when we're constantly in hustle and grind and sprint
Mhm.
mode, dear Lord in heaven, that
I
just
and there are some people who love that. Like, their energy is just boom, 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 and this
yeah,
is what they do. And so I just know that I've just seen people who start there, but they don't have the foundations.
right.
And then they get so discouraged
Yeah,
that they don't see results or they don't see things happening. But what they forgot is that there's like these little pieces that just need to be in play to help
yeah,
you take the sprints, like you're saying. So you get those
yeah,
foundations, boom, let's go. Now you need some more foundations, boom, let's go.
yeah,
So I think you're right. And what you say is that it's not a constant sprint. We can have sprints in between there, but
mhm,
it's just, there's pieces that sometimes are missing, I find.
yeah, yeah, no, totally
Mhm.
agree. And these sprints too are good when you're in the zone. When you're in the
Absolutely.
zone, strike while the iron's hot, baby. Go, do your lives, do your reels, have at
Yes.
it, get that energy out there
Yeah.
because you're in a creative space.
Yeah.
Take advantage of that space. But,
Yeah.
we all know entrepreneurship is like this, right? It's not
Yes.
a straight line. There's
No.
nothing, right?
No.
So,
Yeah.
anyways, all right. And so I just mentioned lives and reels and that kind of thing. This is the
Yeah.
thing is that we have this coming at us all the time. Have to do lives, have to do reels. There's a 5-day live challenge. There's a 5-day reels challenge. Okay.
Yeah.
Love these challenges. I think it's great. And if you're in the zone, terrific. If you're not in the zone and you're feeling like crap, it's going to be a tough one. Now,
Yeah.
we all have to start somewhere, but for well, I'm gonna say predominantly introverts because that feels like being naked in the town square. It's like, all
Yeah.
right, I suppose at some point I'll get used to it, but I'm still gonna be naked in the town square. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and there's almost a resentment
Mhm.
on the dependency
Yeah.
of
Absolutely.
of this. So, how would you suggest getting comfortable with that? How do we get comfortable being naked in the town square?
So I think you also just said it too, Carol, is that you take that first step and you start and you see what feels good. And if it doesn't feel good, you reevaluate and see what works. Reels or live videos, they're not for everybody. They
Mhm.
really aren't. And I don't think that you need to be doing reels and live videos all the time to see success. Sure, there's platforms like, let's say, Instagram or TikTok. They're mainly video platforms. But what I do see as there's a lot of introverts who are doing a lot of the faceless marketing, which I do love, but they're also showing bits and pieces of who they are. So it's not necessarily just that. And I love that. And I love that that gives them the space to create, but then also share little pieces of them. Like something I see with you, Carol, is like inside of this community, you do these inspirational lives where there's something that comes up for you and it's from the heart, and I love it. Like, you're usually on your walks, and that's when you have this bout of inspiration. You're like, I gotta talk about it.
Mhm.
That's how it's supposed to feel. Like, you're supposed to have you're supposed to be able to feel like this fun and freedom with it. And it's when you're in the zone and creating reels, like for myself, I don't create a lot of reels. Lately I have, but that's also because we've been going out. We've had a little bit more energy since being sick in this house. And so I was like, let's take some quick clips and I can use those for future videos.
Right.
However, it's not always like that. It's not
Mhm.
always like that. And
Mhm.
even one time, this probably would have been like 2 years ago, I did like a 365-day live challenge.
Oh my gosh.
I love this woman, okay? So all of these videos are coming up in my memories, and all I can do is look at that woman and say, "That was really messy, but I love that you showed up. Like, you showed up even when you didn't want to." Like, I look at them, I'm like, "Girlfriend, what were you doing?" Like, oh my gosh. But then there's some of the videos where, like, you can tell the difference of my energy. You can tell the days where I'm like, I'm in it, I have a message, it's important. And the other days where I'm like, oh, I made it. I'm here today. Like, so I don't agree in like those types of challenges, like just based off of my own experience with them. But I do feel like it's given me the confidence to have conversations with people because I push through my comfort zone. So in creating videos or reels or content, you just have to start. And it's allowed to look really messy because 2-year-old, back there,
Yeah.
Kara, her videos were messy. Like, straight up, some of them were really nice, and other ones were like, okay, that was good. So I'm like, you just have to start. Like, nobody's perfect. Even the people who can have a conversation on here, and you're like, how do they talk so well? How,
Yeah.
how does this happen?
Yeah.
Through grace and through trial and error.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly it. Because I mean, I'm sure you can't see it, but when you said 365 days of lives, I felt beads of sweat pop up on my forehead. Because I mean, you and I have already established you're an extrovert. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
I heard that and it was like, oh, oh, mommy needs to change her deodorant. Because
It was,
this was just, I can't even imagine. I
yeah.
can't even imagine. If somebody had given me that challenge, it would have been, well, it's been nice knowing you. But
Yes. Yeah.
so
It's,
God love you for doing that because I
yeah.
think that, but talk about feeling comfortable with the uncomfortable
Oh, yeah. When
by
I
the at
first,
the end of the day, right?
yeah.
I mean, then you come out of that 365 days and go, not much else social can throw at me now.
No, I remember when the very first live I ever did. So this would have been like 6 years ago now. And I remember talking with my coach and being like, "You want me to go live? Excuse me? What?" Like, and she's like, "Yeah, I do. I want you to announce your stuff. I want you to like just be there." And I'm like, "You are crazy."
Meh.
And she's like, "No, I promise you." Like, and so I remember going on, my cheeks were red. I had like this like rash all up my neck. And I just was like, wow. But it was, I had a system, I knew the things I was talking about, and I did it. And so I feel like even as an extrovert, it still takes courage. It still takes courage to do something that puts you in the spotlight.
Mhm.
Because even though I like to have conversations or go out and do things, that doesn't mean that I'm like the most confident person all the time. That doesn't mean that I don't have fears.
Mhm.
And even just to kind of bring this all back in regards to like social media and creating reels and things like that,
Mhm.
is you have to feel good about the content you're putting out. I
Mhm.
do really believe that. And even I know that even with working with Carol, that was a big thing that we wanted to make sure is that the content that she was putting out, she felt good about. And so, and if you're not feeling good about it, it's an energy. People can feel that. And so you don't, if reels don't feel good to you, just because somebody tells you that that's the way that it should be, doesn't mean that it's the way that it should be for you.
Right.
And I encourage you to like, if you have, there's different areas where I think videos are necessary, but I don't think you need to be doing a live challenge. I don't think you need to be doing a million reels. I don't think that.
Mm.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because and I know and it's not lost on me that this might seem like a little bit of a contradiction in terms when I say like I don't like doing lives and I don't like doing reels and that kind of thing because here I am on
Mhm.
a on a recording where you and I are
Yep.
creating a reel essentially right now.
Yep.
But it's different because we are in a conversation. There's an exchange of
Yes.
information. When it comes to
Yep.
doing lives, it's like you're speaking out in the void,
Yep.
right? You're just, and it's really just, okay, so now I've got a camera on while I'm talking to myself.
Yep.
Right? It's that fourth wall that we,
Yes.
in actor speak, right? It's like, okay,
Mhm.
you're breaking the fourth wall, but you're not really aware that it's there or it is.
Yep.
It's a very not only confusing, but I find it feels sometimes unnatural, which I guess that's when
Yes.
you're out of your comfort zone, is going to
Yep.
feel unnatural. And I don't think that's just reserved for introverts. You said it
Nope.
yourself, right? As an
Yep.
extrovert, you felt that as well.
Absolutely.
So, what am I trying to say then? What is it that you would suggest then? What did you mention something about faceless marketing?
Yep.
What are some that, because you said introverts really kind of like doing that
Yes.
faceless marketing. Can you give us
Yep.
some examples of that?
So I'm not a faceless marketing expert. There's a few people that I can definitely recommend and we can take them below. But what I think is when it's just not having you as the person who's creating the videos, it's still creating very relevant content to your niche, to who you are, to who you serve.
Mhm,
But it's videos of people like you walking. It's
mhm.
videos of different it's things that you love that's not your face.
Right.
It's no face. So there's lots of people who do it where they take videos of them, like, sitting there typing. There's videos of people just walking out on their walk, and then they put a text over top of it. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could be sitting there and having your camera and taking a sip of your coffee and putting it down.
Mm,
It's I feel like it's that simple, but then the messages that you put in it need to be strategic when you do those things.
right.
Um,
Right.
that's kind of the basis of that. Like I said, I'm not really a faceless marketing. I find is something that's new, that's becoming a big thing for people. It's definitely something that's been around, but it's definitely getting a lot more traction and attention. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and you and I kind of explored that and are exploring
yeah,
that, and probably I'll do it a lot more now
yeah,
because one of the things I love to do is voiceover.
yeah,
I much prefer recording my voice, even if I were doing it first thing in the morning and I've got a hit of inspiration. I'd
yeah,
rather be popping that onto my phone and then just overlaying that on top of something else that's
yeah,
supporting it. And I've
yeah,
done that. You and I have created a few posts that way where you've come
yes,
up with the B-roll and
yeah,
or you've threaded it together and my voice is over it. And
yeah,
that to me is a lot more comfortable. Now that's for me, but there
yeah,
could be, yeah, other ways, I guess. So it's really telling introverts that, hey, you can get creative with
yeah,
this and you can have fun with it and
yeah,
still be your authentic self without
yes.
feeling like you're losing a piece of your soul.
No, and even with some of the clients that I support, that's a direction that they're wanting to go into.
Mhm.
And so it's a learning curve, I think, also for people who are so used to potentially showing their faces or showing other things. But I think it's a really nice opportunity for people to grow in videos and to
Mhm.
grow in creating reels for themselves that feel comfortable.
Mhm.
And so it's I think it's a part of social media that's being an evolution. There was a big thing that was coming through as well with parents taking their kids off of social media, right?
Right.
They didn't want to have their faces.
Right.
Now, I'm kind of like this end, or like I don't really have a clear opinion about it.
Mhm.
So my children have been on mine, and one thing that I've done is my kids have wanted to. I don't just do it when my kids don't want it. It's like, is this do you, and of course they're little, people will be like, they can't make that decision, but they're smart. They can make their choices.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I think that there's a lot of moms I've seen that have veered more to like the behind the scenes, or like when children are running and there's no faces. So
Mhm.
I do think that whatever it is that you do with your social media, just give yourself some grace to figure it out.
Yeah.
There's going to be some things that you love and some things that you don't,
Mhm.
and give yourself some trial and error, and you'll know. Like, even ask Carol, you'll know. something will feel good and something will not. So, yeah.
Exactly. Well, and sometimes you have to give yourself, like you said, give yourself that grace
Yeah.
because, and speaking for introverts, I mean, the difference between introvert and extrovert essentially is where you get your energy, right? I mean,
Yes.
introverts get their energy from within, whereas
Yeah.
extroverts get their energy from the exchange with another human being.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so that, a lot of people confuse because they look at me and go, no, you're not an introvert because you're not shy. It's got nothing to do with shyness.
No.
So it has absolutely nothing to do with that. But it was just a question of, am I listening to the intuition? Am I
Yeah.
listening to what message I'm trying to get out there? Am I
Yeah.
being my authentic self? Am I, because there's going to
Yeah.
be opinions all over the place, and most of them
Yeah.
are perceived
Yeah.
opinions because,
Yeah.
right, you're trying to do a 360 on it, but sometimes there's other stuff that's coming in that really doesn't belong
Yes.
in there.
Well, and
But
even I love that you brought that up too, getting that energy from within or even from
yeah.
other people is that as an extrovert, we do need to be mindful. Like when you talk about that intuition piece, like we know when we're in a room with somebody, like I know right away I can look at someone and I'm like, no, no. And
Mhm.
so I try not to get my energy from that person.
Right.
I find there are also other people who take a lot of energy
Yeah.
from people who are extroverted because that's what we do is that's how we have that exchange. And so there are some conversations where I just feel completely depleted.
Mhm.
And then I have to figure out, well, dang, I don't even have the space to have more conversations. How am I going to get this energy back? So
Right.
I think that's really important for extroverts to know too is like be careful with the
Mhm.
conversations you're having and where you're putting that energy out and where you're grabbing it from, which
Right.
is another thing of like those blinders. It's good to have inspiration. It is
Mhm.
good to look up to people. It is great to have people that you look at in business and say, I one day want to be this way. I envision my business looking similar to this. So I look up to that person. But then there's also putting your blinders on and not just constantly doing the scroll.
Yeah.
Because I think we all fall victim to that. We all
Yep.
fall victim to the scroll. And
Mhm.
then that's when those other opinions come through. So I think it's great to have people to look up to. I think it's great to be mindful of your energy. And I think it's okay to also put your blinders on.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad you brought that up because you're right. The energy that you pick up off someone else, because and let's face it, and
Mhm.
this is another area that I'm hoping we have a couple of minutes to be able to jump into because one of the things that's super important about social media is, and that people need to know is it's not your mailing list. It can go away at the whim of the Elon
Yeah.
Musks of the world and the
Mhm.
Zuckerbergs of the world and right?
Yes.
Because that can go away. So you're following, it's an illusion, really.
Yeah, it is.
What's important is your mailing list.
Yeah.
That's your audience. That's your true
Yes.
audience. They can't take that away from you. So, bridging the gap between social media and your mailing list
Mhm.
means you have to engage in conversations
Yeah.
to bring
Yeah.
them over to your mailing list.
Yeah.
I think this is a really, really important point.
It is. Yeah.
How do introverts what's your best suggestion for engagement?
So I think for that, in taking a person from them seeing your stuff to them wanting to have to learn more about who you are, is that it's going to be your ideal clients or clients who are on the journey of being the ideal clients, right? Because we all are on a journey, it's an evolution.
Right.
And so I think that when you are talking about what it is that you do and you are being very clear about what it is that you do, you also then have a no brainer freebie that brings people in as well. We want to give them value. Like I've always believed that you can't overvalue something,
Right.
that you can't overgive something. Because if people see the way that you serve or the way that your like content is, they're like, wow, look at how much they're putting in there. Look at who they are. They're
Mhm.
gonna want to follow the journey of you because a
Right.
big thing about social media is that people like you. Something about you clicked for them. Something about you resonated with them. So therefore they wanted to learn more. Something you did they liked. Something you did got caught attention. they want to be on that journey. So how do you support them? So through socials it's strategic. What are your offers? Like, what do you offer? You want to ensure that the conversations you're having with people are about just having conversations and being human, but also being clear and direct on what it is that you do. And
Mhm.
then in that conversation is when you also give something of value. So you're giving value in the conversation, and then you're also giving value in a free offer. And this free offer then builds more trust, and more engagement, I find. And then that's when people start sharing and saying, did you know about this? And then it kind of starts to compound. The more
Mhm.
that you're true with yourself and your business, the more that you have those little pieces of foundation in place, that'll move people this way. That'll move the needle over. And same with your list, then nurturing the list, having valuable conversations in your list so that when they are getting those notifications of, hey, I just got an email from Carol, I want to read that. I know that there's some good stuff in there.
Mhm.
So that's, I guess, my 2 cents. I hope we were on the right track when I was talking about that.
Absolutely. No, no, absolutely, for sure, because
Yeah.
and another thing too is that, it's, getting out of the, uncomfortable, like,
Yeah.
"Hey, I noticed you liked my post about
Hmm.
XYZ."
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy to
And genuine connection,
Yeah.
creating connections with people, not just for a sale, is so
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
When I started in entrepreneurship, I feel like there were so many people that were spamming messages. And the
Mhm.
moment you would like something, or the moment you would engage in something, they were like in your inbox being like, hey, buy this. And
Yeah.
that's not what it is. Like,
Yeah.
once they put their email and
Mhm.
their name into your content,
Mhm.
they're trusting you to nurture them. They're
Right.
trusting you that you're not just viewing them as a sale. They're trusting you that you view them as a human behind the screen. And
Mhm.
obviously those people become a warm audience. Like, when you work in sales, when you work in social media, when you have your own business, any person who's on your mail list is a lead.
Right.
Any person they are, but those people want to be nurtured. They want to feel human before they want to feel like a sales. Because
Yeah.
I know that I don't want to just have somebody hop into my inbox and say, hey,
Yeah.
I see this is something, you look like a pretty great person. You should buy that.
Mhm.
No, I want you to care about me. Why engage with that person? So I think commenting with people when they're like, hey, you like this? What about that did you love the most? I want to make
Exactly.
sure I'm creating content
Mhm.
that you love or other people engage with. And I'm just doing some market research to figure that out. That they're going to feel heard, they're
Yeah.
going to feel seen. And then they're also going to be like, wow, they
Yeah.
took the time to notice me.
Right.
They notice that. So I think there's really great ways to do that, and how you do it, Carol, is wonderful. And I think there's also some really horrible marketing tactics out there.
Yeah. Well, I think it all boils down to intention too. What
Yeah,
is your intention, right? I mean, for me,
yeah,
I've always been curious.
yeah,
Always, always. So it's always okay. So what was it about that that resonated with you?
yeah,
Because I know what I meant by it, but sometimes it lands differently with somebody else.
yes,
So
yeah,
I want to better understand how can I add more value?
yep,
Should I be going down this thread a little bit more and bring more value in
yeah,
this area as opposed to this area? Because
yeah,
even, I mean, I'm not going to say anything about it right now, but I'm actually looking at a workshop that kind of looks like I'm zagging, but I'm not,
nope.
right?
It's very clear.
Yeah,
Yes,
but because I've gotten into conversations with people
yeah,
who have gone, whoa, I didn't know you did that.
yeah,
Right? It's like, well, yeah, but this is one of those things where, you got to be careful too that you're not stepping over a
yeah,
superpower that you're bringing to the table.
absolutely.
So when you're
Yeah,
drawing attention away from that with the comparison game,
yeah,
bring it back to you. That would be my 2 cents. And look
yeah,
at what it is that you do that you love, that feels totally natural,
yeah,
and talk about that.
yeah. And even when you do that, when you lead from a space of authenticity, when you lead from a space of joy or um, love, let's say, for our business, then that's what's also gets perceived. And so I always love if somebody hops in my inbox and they're like, hey, like I had somebody yesterday who said, we just became friends on Facebook. I see what you're doing. I would just love to talk with you some more. What is it that you do? Are you interested in knowing? Like, I'd love to have a conversation. Like, that is a wonderful love, and will always respond to those. I will not respond to someone just directly selling to me in my inbox without getting to know me as a person.
Right.
It's a no.
Right.
So but that's just for me. Like, that's how I operate. There are other people who have thriving businesses based off of it. So I think through like even these conversations is just as much as we're talking about how there's things that work for Carol or the things that work for Kara,
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that it's always going to work for you. This is why everybody has a strategy. This is why everybody has the way that they do their business and what works for them. So follow what works for you. And hopefully, my hope for you is that when you do put your content out in the world, that it feels really good to you, that it almost feels like you're coming back home,
Mhm.
because that's what you're wanting other people to feel. You want people to feel like they resonate with you and what you have, and that you are able to help them in some way.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
We talked about scheduling, and
Yep.
sometimes it's hard to schedule those
Absolutely.
feelings, if you will, or those,
Yeah.
this is where I think probably batch work
Yeah.
would
Mm.
come into play, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Carol wants to talk about that. Yay.
Yes.
Go.
So I'm a big fan of batching your content, and I'm a big fan of doing it on so Carol knows this as well, is that I also have a schedule for my clients. And so we usually give them like a few
Carol
days to
sucks at
figure it
it.
out. No, you don't. You've had a lot of things to move through, and some really beautiful things. And I think we're on a really good track. So give yourself some credit.
Thank
But what
you.
I
Thank
think
you.
is that when you have, I'm like losing my train of thought here. When you
Oh, I'm
have a
sorry.
schedule, can
Batch
you
work.
remind? I'm like, when
Batch
you have
work.
those moments where your
Oh,
brain is like,
yeah. I'm sorry, I threw you off. You were saying a big fan of batch work, and so you
thank you.
schedule,
Oh
you're on a
no, it's
schedule.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
Feel
it's
like
all
that was
good.
a full mom moment. My mom brain kicked in. Um, and so in regards to batching content,
Yes.
is I love to do it on a specific day. So there's definitely some days where I'm not exactly as excited for it. And in those moments, I usually do an activity that I enjoy. So whether that's journaling, whether that's going out for a walk, regrounding myself, it gives me the opportunity to then go back and say, okay, because sometimes when you batch content, you can look at it. And even as a content creator myself and somebody who manages multiple social media accounts, sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh, I feel like it feels like almost like you're climbing a big mountain.
Yeah.
But that's like your mind thinking like, oh gosh, this is going to take forever. It doesn't.
Mhm.
It doesn't. At least for me, it doesn't. Once you finally get into the groove and you start writing and you start creating and you start designing, you start seeing a big picture, and it kind of brings that energy back. So when it comes to videos, let's say hypothetically, when I'm out with my kids, we're out for a walk, I'm sitting there grabbing these 7-second clips. They
Okay.
don't even have to, I'm a mom. So, like any content that I put out that resonates, like I love working. Most of my clients, 90% of them are moms.
Mhm.
90% of them are moms with business. So they resonate to wanting that freedom. They want that freedom lifestyle. So that's how I market in my videos. So it's easy for me to batch those when I go out for a little bit. I can take 10 minutes of my whole 3 hours with my kids and have a week's worth of content then, let's say.
Right.
Um, but then for writing content is I just look at what is the message that I want to come across this week? What do I want people to know? And where do I want them to go?
Okay.
And then through that is when I then start mapping out, okay, this is the title for these posts. And then these are like, I kind of break it down into point form of this is what I want in here. And this
Mhm.
is what I want in here. And then I start creating the post. Because
Okay.
if I know ultimately what my goal is that week and where I want them to go, let's say I want them to just have fun this week and I just want to give value and I just want, then I'm going to share quotes. I'm going to share things that are close to my heart. I'm going to talk about gratitude. I'm going to share my kids. So that's easy. If I'm talking more business, I usually am like, okay, does this video really make sense for the conversation that I'm having or where I want them to go? Probably not. So let's create a graphic that then goes with that and puts them on a journey. So I do that through batching because I know what I'm doing, like what my offer is, or what value I'm giving that week, and I
Mhm.
design based off of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That
Long
makes
story short.
perfect sense. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. And I love that you kind of, you break it down, you chunk it down from the 30,000 foot view to,
Yeah.
and then start collecting those little pieces those
Nice.
little, it's like a breadcrumb trail essentially when you're
Yes.
grabbing those 7-second clips here and
Yep.
there. And then, of a day in the life of Kara,
Yep.
right? And then just kind of thread them together into the story, then
Yeah.
that makes and it's all about that, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
about the story. And
Well,
at
and if
the
you know what you're doing, like if you
Yep.
know that this is the, let's say for you, Carol, it's your membership. Let's
Mhm.
say you're promoting your membership.
Yep.
Okay, in that week, what conversations do I have?
Mhm.
You have a beautiful blog. So of
Mhm.
course, the blog resonates. People love reading your content. It has value. And it's the value that people also get to see inside of the membership. They get tons of value. So it makes sense to have those conversations. It's nurturing. It's giving value before selling. And then you have posts about, this is why you should be a part of this space. And then
Mhm.
you have, let's say testimonials and how people feel, like what you're doing for them.
Mhm.
It's all a journey that you're taking people through where you're giving people value. You're showing people where they can get free content. You're showing people where they can get access to you. And you're giving them the value ladder is what I call it. And
Right.
so with anybody, and same with like when I said, when you have a title for a post, and you
Mhm.
break it down, sometimes you have that one post that turns into the rest of the content for the week.
Right.
Because when you break it down into like, okay, well, in this post, I want to talk about this, this, and this. And you're like, well, I can actually just talk about this in that post. And now I have all the rest of my content for the rest of the week.
Right.
So yeah, so if you think about content that way, and like if we overcomplicate, like if we take ourselves um out of that overcomplicated mode and we
Mhm.
just put
Mhm.
that pen to paper sometimes and write it out,
Mhm.
it all makes a lot of sense and much
Absolutely.
easier than we think.
Absolutely. And you know what? You just sparked something in me while you were describing that. And that is when you were talking about the membership, because I was
Yeah,
thinking, why am I finding it so easy to come up with the content for the coaching calls that we have every month or
yeah,
whatever, or my blogs and that kind of thing. So I thought, hang on a second. What if I captured that feeling
yeah,
and then bring that to my content for social?
yeah,
That it just made me realize I just had this huge aha that
yeah,
there's this dichotomy that exists between when I'm in my happy place,
yes,
working with
yes,
the members and the
yeah,
coaching calls and all of that stuff and all that juicy goodness and just
yeah,
having a blast with them.
hmm,
And then I go to social
yeah.
content planning and it's like, oh,
Well, I think it comes back to that. Sometimes we
I
feel
want to
like
see
we
what the
have to share.
caption comes up with when I made that sound.
Yes. Yes. I
But
think
you know what I'm
that
saying, right? It's like why do we have to it's no different.
yeah.
I'm
I
bringing
think you
value
talk
to the
about it really well
table.
too.
Pardon me?
You talk about paradigms and you
Yeah.
talk about,
Yeah.
our subconscious and our conscious. And Carol talks about that very well. And she's brilliant at for you to explain your mind. And so I think when even as you as a coach, like when we think about that, like even the aha moment you just had, you're like, wow. It's like where our emotions sit and
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
this other side is where the action is or where the what we're doing over here, we have to make those kind of work. And sometimes, like you said, you peel back those layers.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and as you have been doing, you've been peeling those back and coming into more aha moments of like,
Mhm.
wow, like I literally can just share how I feel about something. And
Yeah.
that's really about social media, is it's sharing the things that you love.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Right.
not just, it's just, what do you love? What is
Yeah.
your business? Do you love your business?
Mhm.
Then share that with the world. Give value.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's why they keep talking about repurposing content.
Yep.
That's the
Yep.
true value in repurposing content. So it's the
Yes.
same thing. You're just bringing more of you
Yeah.
to the party,
You can
really.
break down a post into 5 different posts.
Yeah.
You and you should repurpose your content.
Yeah,
Like, you shouldn't
absolutely.
have to sit there and
Yeah.
recreate over and over and over again. Like if you have a new offer, absolutely, you're gonna have to create some content. But
Sure.
you shouldn't. You should have a content wheel of things that you get to pull and give value. And sure, you might change some of the verbiage that's in it, but it
Mhm.
should resonate and you should be able to use it.
Yeah.
right? It's relative to what you're talking about. And that's what I see is so many people get caught up in not
Yeah.
using or reusing what they have.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and what you have is gold.
Yeah.
So like use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all roads should lead back to your signature program or your
Yep.
signature offer.
Yep.
Period. That's
Same
it's as
with if
simple as
you're
that.
giving, if you have a free
Mhm.
offer, that free offer is still going to nurture them and lead them, whether they take whether they want to join the next step or not.
Mhm.
It's still going to nurture them. It's
Mhm.
still going to guide them.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. Even myself.
Mhm.
Okay. The people that I've bought from, the mentors that I have, they have guided me. Okay. They have guided me to see what it is or some of the things that I might need.
Mhm.
And so, and they do that very well.
Yeah.
So, and that's why like email marketing exists. That's why we have offers. That's why we have our work. That's why we share what we do because we know the value and we know how it can support you. And
Yeah.
so if you don't promote your offers, I think you're also doing yourself a disservice. You know,
Mhm.
you have something on your heart, you care about what you do, and other people need your services. Other people in this world benefit from your services. And so just speak about them and let it be messy at first. It will
Yeah.
all come clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, Kara, we could talk for hours, I'm sure, and we have. But but
Yeah.
at some point we have to let these good people go. So
I guess so.
but I'm definitely seeing a part 2 in
Yeah.
in this
Yes.
conversation. But for now, we're going to leave it there. I think there's so
Sounds
many
good.
great nuggets. And so, for everybody listening, I will have all of Kara's content or contact information, I should say. It's going to be in the comments and in the description. And yeah, reach out to us. And if you have any questions, by all means, even though this is recorded,
Yep.
leave the questions in the comments because as I mentioned earlier in the intro, we're streaming this in the Mindset Mavericks group on Facebook. We are streaming it on my page on LinkedIn, and we're also putting it in the Badass Banter channel on YouTube. So have at it. Just come on in,
Yep.
ask your questions, and you know, Kara and I will get back to you
Yep.
as soon as we possibly can because we're constantly in
Absolutely.
contact. So, and she seems to
Yeah.
be the other half of my brain right now, which is why I love her so much. Anyways, this has been fantastic. I can't thank you enough. The golden nuggets you just left us with are, man, fabulous, fabulous.
Thank you for this opportunity. So when you asked and you're like, would you we should have this conversation. I was like, yes. Yes, we should. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate everybody who's listened, who's tuned in. And like Carol said, please, if you have questions, just send us a message, leave them in the comments, and let's just engage in some really cool conversation.
Absolutely. And just, I have to end this off this way because we were talking about intuitive nudges earlier,
Yeah.
and everybody listening, you have to understand. I actually met Kara the first time December 23rd on a
Yep.
Zoom call. We started working together January 1st. Okay, count the days. Okay. And then she was instrumental in the pre-launch of Badass Coaching February 1st. Yeah, count the days, 31. That's right. And this conversation, we decided on this what? Thursday?
Yep.
Last Thursday. It
Yes.
is Wednesday. So when you have an intuitive nudge, just act on it. Act on
Yes.
it. Just do it.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Life is a
It sure
creative
is.
process. Get out
Yep.
there and start creating. Love you, my
Absolutely.
friend. I will talk to you
You
soon.
too.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.